From Hollywood action legends wandering back into more dramatic waters and unexpectedly excelling, to a seemingly anything but intimidating rising star being handed the keys to the Sith Kingdom. Each of these castings looked like they had bad news written all over them out of the gates. But oh, how wrong fans and critics were when all was said and done, eh? Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 seemingly awful movie castings that ultimately paid off. Number 10, Tom Cruise as Lestat the Lion Court, Interview with the Vampire. Long before he was Hollywood's go-to daredevil when it comes to all things action spectacle, Tom Cruise found himself acting as the industry's most tried and tested leading heartthrob, stealing the hearts of fans the world over with his work in everything from Risky Business to Top Gun. But that wasn't enough to convince fans of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, or the author herself, that Cruz had it in him to bring the commanding vampire Lestat the Lion Court to life in the 1994 big screen adaptation of her novel. Rice would even go as far as to state, "I don't think I've ever fallen under the spell of an actor when the voice wasn't a big component." And of course, the very sad thing about Tom Cruise is he does not have that kind of distinct voice. However, the bona fide movie star only went and delivered the goods and then some with his portrayal of the famous bloodsucker. So much so that Rice herself ended up dramatically changing her tune upon taking in the flick, eventually calling to apologize to the Lestat star and later noting, "From the moment he appeared, Tom was Lestat for me." Oh, we love a happy ending. Number 9, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. It's remarkable to note how very few seem to have any faith in the casting of Gal Gadot as the iconic Wonder Woman back in 2013, quickly calling out everything from Gadot's thin frame to what some deemed as a serious lack of big screen experience for one tasked with bringing such a legendary figure into a burgeoning cinematic universe. It's safe to say that the Fast and Furious star was facing a serious uphill battle from the get-go, heading into her DC debut in Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. However, in next to no time at all, Gadot proved exactly why she fit the Amazonian princess part like a golden glove, not only holding her own opposite the likes of Ben Affleck's Batman and Henry Cavill's Superman, but stealing the whole bloody Super Show with her charm and presence as Diana Prince. Number 8, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Not a single soul walking the earth today would question whether the all-round acting powerhouse that is Adam Driver has the chops to carry the big bad burden in a legendary franchise. However, 2014 was a very different time indeed. And back then, despite still boasting a number of appearances in critically acclaimed dramas such as Lincoln and Inside Llewellyn Davis, Driver was mostly known for his work on HBO's Girls dramedy series. So news of the star who was yet to really break out as a leading man suddenly being drafted in as the next generation of Star Wars' newest villainous face was enough to leave many scratching their noggins. Some outlets even went as far as to wonder why an actor with more gravitas like Michael Fassbender or Hugo Weaving wasn't brought in for such a meaty and vital role. But J.J. Abrams knew exactly what he was doing, delivering yet another piece of simply inspired casting by the time Driver's deeply conflicted Kylo Ren thrashed onto the scene in 2015's The Force Awakens. And Driver would only go from strength to strength in the years that followed his once controversial walk on the dark side. Number 7, Heath Ledger as the Joker, The Dark Knight. Adam Driver isn't the only eventual villainous delight that was once classed as a bizarre misstep in the casting stage, with the initial widespread rejection of a certain Australian sensation being offered some rather iconic facial makeup, perhaps being the most infamous case of movie fans getting it hilariously wrong. Now, admittedly, Heath Ledger hadn't ever found himself at the center of a character quite like the Dark Knight's Joker before, but the undeniably talented soul had already picked up an Academy Award nomination for his mesmerizing work in Brokeback Mountain, and definitely possessed a certain magnetic quality that Christopher Nolan sensed the 10 Things I Hate About You star could bring to his version of the Clown Prince of Crime. Sure enough, Nolan's confidence in the star was rewarded with perhaps the greatest villainous portrayal in superhero cinema history, and movie history in general for that matter. Number 6, Bruce Willis as John McClane, Die Hard. Back in 1988, cinematic action heroes weren't what you'd class as the most relatable of human beings, it must be said. The likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone had the box office in a freakishly vascular headlock, and the average Joe was seemingly all too happy to escape to a world that saw hulking titans duke it out with predators and gunned down baddies with apparent ease. With that in mind, the reveal of TV comedy actor Bruce Willis being trotted out as the new star of incoming action spectacular Die Hard in 1988 was perhaps unsurprisingly booed by many when the flick's first trailer trailers were unleashed into theaters in the lead up to its release. Said boos soon turned to cheers by the time fans had finally gone out of their way to take in this next generation of action star, however. With Willis's everyman charm as Detective John McClane during his mission to take down some terrorists within a skyscraper, quickly immortalizing the explosive delight and catapulting the actor himself into superstardom. All in all, the then eye-watering $5 million salary paid to the big screen newbie was evidently money well spent. Number 5. Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana, Spencer. As this list has no doubt highlighted already, fans' attitude towards an actor stepping into the shoes of a much-loved character or real-life figure can often dramatically alter in the wake of actually taking in the end product they initially raged against being a thing in the first place. Look no further than the sea of negativity Kristen Stewart was very nearly swept away by in the wake of her casting as the late Princess Diana in Pablo Larraín's Spencer being announced in 2020. Despite the director going to bat for his leading lady, the news was met with many a "please God no" and "can we just leave Diana alone, I think she's suffered enough" on the likes of Twitter. Fast forward a few years and Stewart snubbing at the 2022 BAFTAs for her transformative work as Lady Di in the flick set the stage for a ton of pissed off fans claiming the actor was robbed and her overlooking at the award ceremony was a joke. With that being said, at least she came away with an Oscars nod, but what a difference a few years make, eh? Number 4. Hugh Jackman as Logan, X-Men. It's been well documented how the star wasn't exactly the studio's first choice to play Wolverine, back when the first X-Men feature was on its way into existence in 2000. Simply put, the casting department shared the feelings that fans would eventually have toward Jackman's casting in the part early on. He was too damn tall and good-looking to play this particular grizzled hero. However, Jackman's portrayal became arguably the most consistently gripping of the X-bunch throughout the franchise's history. And that is saying something when you're sharing the screen with the likes of Patrick Stewart and Ian Bloody McKellen. Number 3. Harry Styles as Alex, Dunkirk. Christopher Nolan sensed there was something worth capturing on film when it pertained to this particular underestimated star, and did not hesitate to bring the Brit aboard his Dunkirk war epic in 2017. While he may not have stolen the whole movie, something very few were understandably expecting when sharing the stage with the likes of Kenneth Branagh, Mark Rylance and Tom Hardy, Styles definitely holds his own as a mouthy young soldier by the name of Alex, fighting for his country and life throughout the World War II epic. Number 2. Sylvester Stallone as Freddy Heftlin, Copland. As referenced earlier on in this list, Sylvester Stallone very much found himself leading the muscle-bound action movie charge during the 80s and early 90s. Only by 1997, Stallone's star was seemingly on the fall, with the likes of Assassins and Daylight doing little to intrigue audiences, it must be said. So it wasn't too difficult to see why many were left scratching their heads at the news of the Rambo and Rocky Titan being brought in for James Mangold's incoming crime drama Copland. Even the director himself confessed that Stallone was not his choice for the leading role of the overweight and deeply vulnerable Sheriff Freddy Heftlin. Yet after laying down the law and claiming that he'd only bring Stallone along for the ride if he agreed to commit to the part in the way Mangold needed him to, packing on the pounds for realsies, Stallone went on to give the sort of truly layered performance that reminded folks precisely what caliber of actor was still lying underneath his meathead exterior. It may not have blown up the box office, but it definitely sits as one of Stallone's most unexpected finest hours in front of a camera. Number 1. Nearly every Batman ever. You'd like to think that fans would have learned to sit back and see how things play out in Gotham by now, when it pertains to the casting of a new Bruce Wayne. But if the reaction to Robert Pattinson's Bat casting was anything to go by, fans still haven't learned their lesson when it comes to this particular recurring theme. Of course, quickly making a mockery of said calls to think twice about bringing the Twilight star into the Gotham mix, Pattinson absolutely smashed it in Matt Reeves' The Batman. Yet he merely followed in the footsteps of those before him who were ridiculed in the lead up to taking the iconic role to another level. Michael Keaton's casting was met by 50,000 angry fans sending in letters to Warner Brothers. Folks laughed in Christian Bale's face when he confessed to taking the Bat down a more serious route, and 100,000 people signed a petition to have Ben Affleck hang up his cape and cowl before he'd even stepped in front of a camera. And even with each of these talented lads eventually killing it with their various adventures, you wouldn't bet against folks once again raging against the Warner Brothers machine when it comes time to add another Batman to the collection later down the road.